All right, hi everyone. So today we wanted to talk about disseminating truthful information in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. So first, we have to inquire and analyze the problem in order to be able to solve to solve the problem and create a solution that actually serves a good purpose.
So the problem is there's a lot of misinformation spreading in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's important that we keep people safe by knowing it's important that we keep people aware of what's truthful and what's not, and people can make bad decisions if they didn't have accurate information.
First, it's important to separate
Hey Krishna, could you
misinformation.
speak up a little bit or bring the mic a little bit closer?
Is this better or is
Yeah,
this
that's
the
perfect.
same?
That's perfect.
Okay. First, it is important to separate misinformation, which is the accidental spread of false information, from disinformation, which is the spread of false information with intent, since invalid information concerning COVID-19 is permanently accidental. People often share this information with the intent to provide a positive feeling. In COVID-19 case, people want to provide a secure feeling to others, but inadvertently they cause problems such as distrust and fragmentation of society, as well as bias in political elections. Some examples of misinformation include the spread of disease through ethnicity, false cures, and the possibility that COVID-19 is a bioweapon. Social media is proven to be the most effective way for misinformation to spread in this age due to the millions of users these apps have, such as Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. Social media is the most effective platform to spread false information because social media companies have not developed algorithms to fact check the information properly posted and shared on their apps, even though misinformation is a problem that social media companies have been facing for years. Misinformation can have drastic effects on the mental health of a person, such as paranoia, closed-mindedness, depression, and the development of phobia, such as germophobia or claustrophobia. While information affects the individual, societies often suffer as a result of the catastrophic events. Collective sense making is when large groups of people come together to understand the cause of the event, which allows misinformation to disseminate quickly and rapidly, since most people are keen to take the first solution they are presented when in shock.
At this moment, I just wanted to talk about how it's important to recognize that we have both primary and secondary research points. And in terms of the process, looking at these primary and secondary points is extremely important because the better we understand the problem and how it spreads, the better we're going to be able to figure out the root causes of the problem and stop them and be able to create an effective solution.
So, existing solutions for individuals. At the moment, there's a lack of large-scale solutions because the large companies do not seem to be too concerned about the facts of misinformation about COVID-19. So they do not try to. Uh, so they do not spend time and money trying to fix it. And as a result, individuals must bear the responsibility. Currently, to prevent the spread of misinformation, as shown below. First steps set by a good source called Brookings, individuals must become familiar with the algorithms of the social media they use. The consumer preferences are the most often targeted. And if possible, change or turn off advertisements or post recommendations based on personal and consumer activity. Scrutinize your news sources and think before sharing. If news seems to be crazy, to be true, it probably is. And that's from Kaplan.
So here is a feature on Facebook called Right Click Authenticate, in which users can actually right click a post on Facebook and then click Authenticate to make sure that the information is factual. Now, why are we trying to look at these different types of existing solutions, and what's the problem with them? Well, the biggest problem we see is that in these existing solutions, they require user initiative. A user has to spend time trying to, and they have to put an extra effort forward to try and prevent the spread of misinformation. But in reality, people don't have that time. People are just trying to scroll through posts and look at all these different posts. So it's important that we acknowledge this issue, even though there are existing solutions.
Not to mention that people have been on most social media lately due to isolation in quarantine, and it's not just Facebook. It's also happening on Instagram where there's an actual fact check that's it's trying to prevent false information from being spread, which is a good thing. And here we have the design brief, which is using AI to filter posts on social media, and that's what we've been talking about. It's about having a credible source mark next to a news source, just like in an Instagram verified mark on social media. If a post seems to be phishing or misinformed based on AI algorithms, basically if someone's not verified, then it should be added to a post by it'll be added to the post by the social media platform. News sources must cite the sources as well and make audio recordings. Documents and primary sources are available to the public to verify the information. With the rise of fake news, it is incredibly important for news sources to maintain the credibility by directly referencing primary sources instead of cross-referencing other news articles and other secondary sources. Cloud storage and hyperlinks can make cross-referencing and citations much easier as well.
So the important thing to recognize here is that these are just some of the ideas that we first came up with based on our research. And once again, we're going to relate everything back to our research, because the better we understand our problem, the better we can find solutions that actually address the problem. And these are just some of the basic ideas. So now we're going to move on to, first of all, I just wanted to mention that these are our citations. You can also look at the parenthetical citations for each individual piece of research. So we just wanted to show that we have credible sources, both primary and secondary sources that we've used. So now we're moving on to criterion B, which is developing ideas. And this is where the planning of the solution begins. And Max, could you discuss the design specifications?
So for the design specifications, we need it to be accessible to everyone, regardless of their experience with technology or even their age. We also need it to be available on all platforms and devices, and it had to be preventative as well as counteractive. We also have to have a database that's credible, and it doesn't require user initiative, and it's always there just in case you need it.
The reason why it's important for it to be preventative and counteractive is so that we stop the problem before and after. And once again, we go back to the research looking at it doesn't require user initiative, because the better we understand how users are actually accessing social media and looking at different posts, we realize that once again, users don't have that time, and as a result, we need an algorithm that automates the system for the user and makes it the easiest for the user.
So, Krishna, you go.
Okay. So here we have our list of designs, and each of them either use a preventative or counteractive approach. And most of them are embedded electronically because that's the easiest way for us to identify misinformation. So with design one, an algorithm processes the information, and if it is verified, there will be a check mark, and if it is factually incorrect, there will be a cross mark. With design two, it is a Google Chrome extension that allows fact checker and authenticator. With design three, it allows social media platforms to have an option to report information if they believe it is fake or spam. Design 4 allows a preventative approach where before posting, if any signs of false information are detected, an algorithm will alert the poster. Design 5 uses a peer or an an AI that will review the information and either mark it as verified or unverified.
So Flanagan, could you discuss with us right now why we chose what we chose and how each of these different solutions relate back to our design specifications?
Okay, so pretty much it shows how each design relates back to the design specification and why you would use a mix of all of them to create the like end design.
Yeah,
And
so
so,
go ahead, go ahead.
no, you can go.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that, each of these different solutions have pros and cons. They both have benefits and drawbacks. So we wanted to take the benefits of each of them, as Flanagan talked about, and combine these different aspects and basically create a solution that addresses every little detail we can think of, of course, at the moment. So once again, we relate back to the research. We're relating back to the design specifications because the specifications are based on the research. And by following these guidelines, we've created essentially a kind of a checklist for ourselves to go through and ensure that we've covered all the different aspects that an effective solution needs to have. All right, so now we're on to criterion C, which is creating the solution. And this is where we actually started developing our solution into greater detail. And this was our proposed timeline for the solution. So we wanted to, first of all, we needed to contact social media platforms to propose the idea and get it approved. Because if we don't get it approved, there's not really a point, right? So we need to make sure that we need to form partnerships with social media platforms. We need to contact them, and we just need to make sure that this is available. The next step, so this will take actually, this would take about a month. So the next step is to get the software ready, and we would need to write out the code for the program. We would obviously need to hire programmers and incorporate the program into applications or online extensions, which once again was one of our design, ideas. To need this, we need to have access to programming software, and we need people who are proficient in these different programming languages to develop the applications and the online extensions. And we also need a database that can be created of factual information, somewhere to keep the database, and we once again we need to develop the AI and all these different aspects. What that should take about a month as well. So then we plan to contact and hire a panel of scientists and media experts because if we remember back to one of the designs, which was the peer review, we are going to need these scientists and media experts to verify the information. So we need to contact them and find a way to hire them and find people who are genuinely passionate and dedicated. And then finally, we need to advertise the new solution, the product, and encourage others to prevent the spread of misinformation. And the faster we're able to get this done, we can further prevent this misinformation that's spreading in the midst of this pandemic and, God forbid, future pandemics. And the reason why we need to do this is because, once again, the misinformation spreading has very drastic effects. And the materials we need to do this are advertising services as well as budgeting, and we need to make sure that we're planning and using our money properly.
So the basic plan for the solution is three processes: a preventative algorithm and two counteractive algorithms. So for process A, the user will post information, and then an AI algorithm will fact check it across a database. If there is any keywords that show any factual inaccuracy, it will show them a message and give them the option to still post it or to take it down and correct it. In process B, as soon as the post goes online, if it contains any scientific information, data, or news, there will be a gray minus icon, and that's to indicate that it hasn't been verified, it hasn't been checked by our panel. The post will then go on to be reviewed by the panel, and it will show a green check mark if the information is factually correct, and then it'll show a red cross mark if the information is not correct. And then with user C, with process C, um, it's user reporting. So if a user sees a post and it's not been verified, then the user has an option to select spam, or has an option to say if the post is spam or inaccurate. Where there, it will go and be reviewed by the panel.
So basically, all of these processes that we've created so far in Criterion C are just very rudimentary and like rough designs of the final thing that we're going to see later on in Criterion D, where we finalize and sort of combine all these algorithms together.
And once again, the important thing to note here is that this is a process. This is a continuous development. Like Aaron said, we go back to Criterion D, we notice things need to change, and we justify those changes, we make those changes, ultimately because, you know, we want to keep improving this product, and we want to make sure that it addresses all the problems that we discussed in the research. So now is evaluating. So assuming that we've completed the solution, and we are now looking at it from an evaluative approach. What can we do to change, to improve? What are the benefits? So that's what we're going to discuss right now.
So in our evaluations from last week, we saw that social media is the biggest platform for misinformation. And we also saw that we wanted to combine all of our designs into one big one that could be stronger than all the other ones because it had more levels of fact checking. We also decided to add details to each of the sub-processes, which would further explain exactly how the application or extension works. We decided to add extra extensions such as prioritizing different posts and making a continuous process, which we represented using flowcharts to make sure that our solution was feasible. So here we judged the success of the solution. So our first design specification was it accessible to everyone? And we said it's fully achieved because through the design that we made, it's free and open source, and the program is able to be used by anyone, regardless of socioeconomic factors. Our second design specification was also if it was available on all platforms and on all devices. And this was close to fully achieved because the algorithms and designs are all open source and available on the internet. So everyone could access it, but it has to be with someone with an electronic device. This excludes some devices because some devices may not support it, or it might be some might not have access to it. So another design specification was the preventative approach. This was mostly achieved because by warning users ahead of time, the program prevents the spread of misinformation. However, since we live in a free society, users can still override this feature. It is something saying that, oh, this might be wrong, but you can still post it if you want to.
So as Max is discussing the preventative approach feature and how we live in a free society, this was a moral and ethical implication we actually discussed a lot about, because assuming that it's true that we do live in a free society with free access to information, and we can't hamper people's liberties, individual liberties, and people have the right to do that. So we still need to respect that, but we just need to make more informed choices. So that's really the goal here. Our goal is not to disable people. Our goal is not to prevent people from making jokes occasionally, because yes, humor is necessary, but we're strictly looking at the negative effects of misinformation as it relates to global pandemics.
We also had a counter approach as a design specification. This was also mostly achieved because the program finds a way to help ameliorate the problem by correcting information or informing users after it has been posted. However, the program won't always be able to counteract the issue because it relies on artificial intelligence, which may mess up sometimes. We also wanted our product to be credible. This was fully achieved because the program is definitely credible because it uses a large group of qualified experts to confirm or reject the information. This was done by creating a group of scientists or media experts that can review each post. And the last design specification was it doesn't require user initiative. This was partially achieved because users don't have to fact check every little detail that they find on their own. For the most part, the program does it for them. However, most people will have to do it by themselves because the program can only go so far.
One more thing before we move on um, is that this success we were referencing back to the design specifications, and I can't stress that enough, because the fact that we're trying to solve the problem on the basis of these design specifications means that we're solving the root causes of the problem. So this shows really the impact of our solution and how successful it is.
So this is me, MG.
Yes, yeah, that would be good if you could talk about that, Max.
So improvements we could have done. So one of our problems was that facts can change over time based on your research. Facts can be proven or disproven depending on evidence, right? So the algorithm should be adjusted so the information is re-verified every 2 weeks if the issue relates to current events, and every 6 months if the issue is not current. Another conflict or problem is that controversial topics may be difficult to fact check if there are two sides to an issue. The algorithm should include a special marking, maybe a thumbs up and a thumbs down icon, to indicate that the topic is controversial and that more credible research is needed. A link to an external page can be provided that offers credible research on both sides of the issue. This can be done to show, again, both sides to the argument. In some countries, information is regulated by the government. There's not much we can do to resolve this issue because governments control the people, and if they don't want to use the program, we can't really force them. People might report posts that are in fact factually accurate. The algorithm already ensures that a sufficient number of reports are necessary to go to the next level. Additionally, once the next level is reached, a larger group of credible experts will verify the information. So there should not be much concern.
All right, great. So now that we've discussed all of our improvements on our process along the way, I wanted to present what our group created. So essentially our final solution, and we've created a flow chart to better go through the process. So as you can see, process A, which is the preventative algorithm, starts when the user submits a post on social media and hits submit. Now we're referencing a database here, and when the AI program, basically when it references the database for the factual information, if the keywords match up with the factual information, then great. Then we're going to approve the post and we're going to move on to process B potentially. And if it's not, then we're going to tell the user, are you sure you want to submit this post? Because, you know, the effects might be really bad. And then we'll give them the specific words which might spread information, spread misinformation. And then if this user chooses to override it, once again, because we do live in a free society, if the user selects to override it, it'll approve the post. If not, then we'll go back to allowing the user to edit their post. And this dashed arrow right here shows that we're going to use the database again in process B. So moving on to process B here now. Process B, if my computer will load, perfect. So process B is a science news panel verification. So we're going to make sure that we have a panel of qualified experts to judge the information and really ensure that it's credible. So process B starts if the keywords do relate particularly to science or news, then we are going to go through with process B. If not, then we're going to go ahead and end the process because it's not relevant anymore. So now when the when the post does relate to science or news, first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark it as not checked. And when it's marked as not checked, as we previously showed, there's going to be a gray minus icon, and this process will actually lead into process C, which we'll talk about later. But when the posts are not checked, we're going to create a document that contains a list of the different posts that the panel needs to verify. And the panel will verify the post on the top of the document. And then if it does contain controversial topics, like we said, then we might want to show this the icon where it indicates that it's a controversial topic, and they can click at a certain link for more credible research, and that'll end the process then and there. If it's not controversial, if it's purely factual, we're sure as of the moment. Then the panel will decide. If the panel verifies the post, great, we'll display the check mark. If they don't, then obviously we display the X. We won't take it down because, once again, we live in a free society, but we're going to make sure that people are informed. That's the goal here, to inform people, and that'll end the process. Good. So now, remember how we said that how we said that facts can change, how Max discussed how if facts change, then so do the posts, right? So we have a loop here that even after the process ends, this arrow shows that the information is to be re-verified every 2 weeks. So if it's a current events issue, we're going to re-verify it every 2 weeks, and if it's a not so current issue, we'll re-verify the issues every 6 months. So it's important to look at all these different aspects, because if we don't address these concerns, then we're not solving the problem to its full extent. So now, if a process if a post has not been yet verified, now we go to process C, which is the user reporting. So this is user initiative based. Once again, hopefully my computer will load. If not, please bear with me here. Let's refresh the page and see if that does anything. Okay, perfect. So obviously we see that process B leads into process C. Oh, I thought it loaded for a second and now it's gone again. If this doesn't work at all, okay, so this is still loading here. If this doesn't work at all, we can go back to the slideshow, but this should work. Let me select the full screen so you can focus on this. Okay, so process C. So on Instagram or other Facebook posts, usually there's a menu bar, right? So if the user sees that the post is not yet verified, and they understand that it definitely looks like misinformation, what they can do is they can either select spam or misinformation. If they mark the post as spam, then we're going to add 1 to a variable called spam count, okay? And then if the spam count is over 50, what that means is if over 50 people have indicated it as spam, then we're going to mark the post as scam, we're going to display the spam icon, and the process ends. If not, if 50 people haven't done it yet, obviously this is in a loop and this keeps on going. If the user did not mark it as spam, the user must have marked it as misinformation. And if they did mark it as misinformation, then it's going to be prioritized and it's going to be put on top of the document. So this is what the dash arrow indicates. Remember the document that we created here? So this document, the misinformation, the post that's marked as misinformation, is going to be prioritized and it'll be put on top of the document. That way our credible panel can go back and look at it. So that's basically the gist of it. And everything that's color coded here, you can go back to the original slideshow and see what those color coded improvements are. So that's why we wanted to reference our improvements, because once again, it's really a process. So we are back to our slideshow here with some of the designs that we made to show how it would look. Once again, hopefully my computer will load. This is definitely another issue we're seeing, bandwidth issues, because a lot of people are trying to access the internet at once. So that's another remnant of this pandemic, but it is what it is. So this is what the process A would look like. So for example, if I were to type into Facebook, drinking bleach can cure coronavirus, it's so cool. First of all, I want to mention that that's not true. Please do not do that. Please, I'm really serious about that. Please do not do that. If I hit post, the program's going to run and it's going to warn me. Your post contains these words, bleach and coronavirus, which may spread misinformation, and then I could select no and retype in my post. That's great. So now this was process B. With process B, we see that if it's not verified, we have the gray minus icon. If it's controversial, then we will have the thumbs up and thumbs down icon, and then we'll say that this scientific or news quote has been checked. It's a controversial topic. Please click here for more credible research. That way people can make informed decisions. And then finally, if it's pure factually inaccurate as our panel has decided, then it will have an X mark. If it's been verified, then it will have a check mark. And obviously, as you can see, these are respectively very factually inaccurate and very factually accurate from the World Health Organization, as you can see on the right. And then finally, we have process C. And this is an example of what it would look like on Instagram. If a user posts something like, there's a COVID-19 vaccination. Once again, that's not true. But what users can do, if it hasn't been verified, is they can hit the button that says mark as spam or mark as misinformation. If at least 50 people mark it as spam, then the spam icon will show up. And if they select misinformation, then once again, it'll go back to that document in criterion D. All right, Ridge, actually, who is going to do this one?
That's
talk about
me.
the impact.
So the impact on our target audience, once the information is verified, social media users are able to recognize that the effects of they'll be able to recognize that their choices online can lead to the spread of misinformation. This will make them more conscious about the information that they choose to spread. People will make more informed decisions and choices based on what they now know, leading healthier, happier, and longer lives. And people will be able to remain more calm and less depressed during these times, knowing that they have access to this truthful information rather than incorrect information. People will think twice before accepting any piece of information to be true because they have our product to help them find what is true and not. And through a process called collective sense making, society will better be able to deal with the crisis at hand. And well, we think that our solution is a huge step forward and is a step in the right direction toward from current procedures. It uses user initiative, and the experience is much more streamlined for the common user, and the process is much more efficient and effective.
Great. So we've shown once again back to our research, like terms like collective sense making, how our solution really goes back to that research and solves every little one of those details. And that's why I personally, and I think our whole group can attest to this, I personally think that our solution is a great step. Obviously, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. There's going to be more improvements that need to be made, but I think for now, this is definitely a good concept, and we definitely urge you to try and promote it. And we would be really happy if, ultimately the goal here is to make sure that people are able to live safely, happily, healthily. That's the big goal. All right. And it all goes back to the research and how our solution addresses that research. So I wanted to thank you, and on behalf of the whole group, we hope that you've been able to more effectively and more efficiently disseminate truthful information in the midst of this pandemic. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll get through this soon, and we'll see you on the other side.